Well, hi, I'm Jim Peacock, and welcome to another Peak Careers interview. Today, I want to really talk about why should you get involved with your professional association? What kind of action steps might you take, and what are sort of the benefits? And so I kind of went back through the past presidents of NCDA, and I nudged these three wonderful people: Lisa Severy, who was NCDA president 13-14, Lakeisha Matthews, who just finished up. And as we record this, I think last week or this week actually, and Dr. Seth Hayden, who was past president, but he was presidential in 2021. So we're going to look at some of the benefits of being involved with a professional association, and then some advice that we might all of us may give to people who are new to the profession. So if you want to read these in entirety, you can always pause the video, but I'm just going to highlight a couple of things. Dr. Lisa Severy has been a leader in career development, counseling, and higher ed since 1996. She is an NCDA Certified career counselor and has worked with students and alumni at a variety of institutions, most recently University of Colorado Boulder and the University of Phoenix, and has a private practice. Dr. Seth Hayden is an associate professor of counseling, coordinator of clinical mental health programs, and the associate director of the online counseling program at Wake Forest University. And I didn't know this until I read your bio, but he's also the past president of the Military and Government Counseling Association, as well as NCDA, which are both divisions of ACA. And then Dr. Lakeisha Matthews is director of Career and Internship Center at the University of Baltimore and is also the owner of Right Resumes and Career Coaching. And she has just finished up her term, and I'm excited to have all three of you with me today. So let's start. Let's sort of dive in. Being involved with your professional association. Lisa, why don't we start with you? What do you see as some of the benefits of being involved, your involvement over the years?
Yeah, it's been a while. Like when I saw our presidential dates, I'm like, uh-oh, now I feel old. But yeah, I think honestly, not shy at all, as you all know, but very introverted. And I went to conferences for years and just attended, would go to sessions and enjoyed them and learned a whole lot, especially when I was a newbie. But it really wasn't until I started to get involved that it started to feel more like a family. And now every summer feels like a reunion. Like I hate it when I have to miss for whatever reason. But it did for me, started with the Leadership Academy. But as I said, I had gone to present. I think in one year in particular, the conference was in Phoenix and not Phoenix, Pittsburgh. And Mark Pope was president. May he rest in peace. We lost him this year, but and there was questions and concerns related to the national credential for nationally certified career counselors, which was eliminated that year. And so for me, it was huge to meet with it because I was right in the process of finishing my credential as a nationally certified counselor, but I really wanted that career credential. And there it was gone. And people around me didn't quite get why that was so difficult for me. And so it was wonderful to go to a place where people got it. They were as outraged and disappointed and everything else as I was. And so that to me was the first time that it really hit that in addition to the learning piece, which I think I always expected, that networking piece took a whole new meaning at that point for me. So I have since, of course, then got more and more involved as time went on. But I think it was that first piece of, in addition to meeting other people who do what I do, which is wonderful, and those resources, but also then collectively had a voice that I didn't feel like I had individually at the time. So it all kind of spiraled up from there.
Interesting. I love that. That's a great story about how you can actually, when you get involved, ways you can get involved, right? I mean, there's more than just networking, and I think that's the most obvious one. But yeah, so we'll circle back. Probably have some questions I want to follow up on, but I want to hear from Seth and Lakeisha here. Seth.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. And yeah, I think a similar experience as Lisa, kind of early in my time in the field. I remember people telling me in graduate school, it's really important to be involved. And I was really involved in being in graduate school. That's all I really cared about. So I wasn't, I did like the thought beyond what I needed to do at the time was not of importance to me, really. And so I went to other conferences when I was in grad school and got a little taste of that. But it was my first NCDA conference in 2013 in Atlanta, where I was my previous place of employment. I was the director of a career center, and my start date was one day, and literally days later, I was at NCDA. Like I didn't have the opportunity to say no to that. It's like, you're going to NCDA, you're going to meet all these people. And so I did that. And I was really struck by the similarities I had with the people who were there. Like the things I was interested in, they were interested in. People were so approachable, which I really appreciated. I was sitting next to prominent theorists and researchers and people who are doing incredible things in practice. And I just really felt like I connected with the association and the members of it. And so I just kept staying connected and was fortunate to be able to be involved in different kinds of things. And so there was certainly networking, but it wasn't just like focusing on my own kind of career trajectory. It was networking for collecting ideas. It was networking for partnering on projects. It was networking on doing things I was really interested in. And that's still been the case for me. I agree with Lisa. It really does feel like I'm connecting with people beyond just professional colleagues, but people I've developed some really strong relationships with over the years. And I appreciate that. And so it's been personally beneficial, but also professionally beneficial to me.
Yeah, yeah. Lakeisha, this is all, you're just finishing up. You're not actually done either. You still got your past president here. So, but what are your thoughts about this?
So you scared me for a minute, Jim, when you said I'm not finished. I got a little scared. I came into career services. I found career services, or career services found me in about 2007 at Loyola University, Maryland. And I really liked the work. However, I was a young professional working with people who had been in the field for a while. And I had a lot of ideas. And they did not like that all the time. And in addition to ideas, if you remember around 2007, 08, there was a big recession going on. And I think students started to demand different things from career centers. And I was like, I have got to find some people out here who are excited about this work and know it needs to be done in a different way. And I found the Maryland Career Development Association, and MCDA is one of those bigger CDAs that has a lot of involved people, folks who are really committed to this field. And I just found my family. It exposed me to all of the industries or the ways our work can be done, that it wasn't just higher ed. And I was able to start my business. And then I became president of MCDA and learned about the work on the national level. So just like Lisa and Seth, I found my professional home. I found people who were not only doing this work, but they were passionate about this work. And I think that one of the things I was really searching for were, what are the standards, right, for the work that we do? What are the best practices for the work that we do? And I couldn't find anyone to speak to those things. But when I found MCDA and NCDA, then I found frameworks and I found standards and I found the theories that really spoke to the work that I was doing. And I've never looked back. This has remained my professional home.
Yeah, it's so interesting. We use the word family, right? And connections, and it's so true. I mean, and not every professional association is sort of approachable as NCDA. But regardless of what professional you're in, I mean, I think there's certainly value of getting involved with your professional association. That's where you're going to continue to learn. But it was interesting that we all, and I would agree. I mean, this whole field is very approachable, but it's the learning, that I think that was most, Lakeisha's point about being involved with the state association. When I got involved with Maine Career Development, well, actually, I was one of the people that helped create Maine Career Development a number of years ago, because we had a void, right? We had a group that we're like, where are these people going? One of the things that was amazing to me was my perspective was all higher ed, like school counselor and I was a school counselor for a while, and I was in higher ed, and it was awesome to, I'd meet somebody who worked in workforce development or worked at the, Department of Labor or Voc Rehab or career centers. And it was like, they're dealing with a lot of the same issues, but really a different perspective. And it was really, really helpful to have those different people and those different voices in the room. And I thought that was one of the greatest benefits for me. So learning was the other thing, Lisa. I wanted to circle back on the learning piece, because I think most people kind of go, they get it. Professional associations where you connect and where the networking. But could you just talk a little bit more about the Leadership Academy and how that kind of fit into your learning and thinking, maybe?
Did you say Lisa or Lakeisha?
Lisa.
Oh, okay, good. I didn't want to step on Lakeisha's toes. Yeah. So I had the opportunity, amazing, to be in the first group. So that was one, and they're very upfront. Like, they needed more people running for office for things, so it was designed to be a feeder program for their leadership. But that first day, the conference that we went to in Chicago, learned more about the association. I never even thought about, NCDA seems huge, so there's probably a headquarters of 50 people, right? Oh no, it's 4 or 5 people. So, how everything kind of works. So a little bit of seeing behind the curtain, which can be good or bad. And in this case was really good. The president of ACA was there, and I really have always, my professional identity is right at the intersection of mental health counseling and career counseling. So really understanding, like, I knew that NCDA was a part of ACA, but I had no idea that NCDA helped found ACA. And that is an important part of our history. So, those pieces, having the president of ACA there to present to our group, to learn more about how that works and what that looks like. And that continues to evolve in terms of how the sort of groups that are part of ACA come together as a collective. So it in addition to the content that you're learning at different pieces, there's something to the sort of, again, seeing behind the curtain and figuring out how everything works or doesn't, honestly, when something needs to be addressed, and how that happens over time, I think is really important. And that sense of history, I completely agree with Seth. Like, you're walking into a meeting and this person, I remember the first time I met Mark Savickas, and I think I have 50 references of his in my dissertation. And so, he was just this kind of figure that I read about. Meet him in person, just a whole different level. Or then later on, to be able to introduce my graduate students to Crumbolts, right? And what that looks like. And, our field is 100 years old, and some of these folks who were the innovators, they are getting older. So the opportunity to meet them and really hear, okay, so I've read what this looks like on paper. Tell me what you're really, getting at. Tell me what you really believe about careers and this process we go through. So that sense of learning happens on so many different levels, from the really sort of logistics and operations to, long-term changing my view about how to interact with people around their careers and what they need, whether it's in private practice or with students or alumni, any of those factors, folks who are incarcerated, folks who are dealing with special issues, like all of those types of things. It would be totally impossible to get that in 1 or 2 graduate school classes. It's just not going to happen. So the fact that you have this opportunity to continue to do that as you move through, it's quite the gift.
Yeah, there's just so many levels of learning. I think that, again, I think the obvious is, it's for networking, it's for learning and new learning, right? It's not, because things are always evolving, right? And so when you look at attending the conference, and either your state or the national, there's always new topics coming up and new perspectives, and I just think that's so important.
Jim, could I offer a thought just to build off what Lisa just shared, if that's okay?
Yeah.
Because so currently work to prepare counselors to enter into the field as a faculty member here at Wake Forest. And one of the things I tell them is that I think when counseling is best realized is when you have intersection of theory, research, and practice. And that's going to look different for each person, but that intersection is really important. And I think for me, one of the many attractive elements of NCDA is that it embodies that. Like that's really what the organization focuses on in terms of learning, in terms of the programming they provide. I remember they had a panel with prominent theorists a few years back. I mean, it was like if you had the little emoji of the explosion above your brain kind of thing, like my mind was just blown like so many times because I was just so grateful to witness that and be a part of that. And NCDA provided that. And so that's another element of that learning is that because as a faculty member, I can get detached a little bit from some of the elements of practice. Although I still maintain my license, I still do that, but that's not the primary aspect of what I do. And I get to get exposed to that more as being a part of NCDA about innovative interventions and things people are doing and what's going on in the field. And in addition to attaching to other people who are doing other kinds of really important work. So that's just something that Lisa shared, just fired that off in my mind a little bit about this way in which that learning comes together with these different aspects of what we do.
Yeah. You know, and the thing about that is, I think that there's to your point there's something for everybody, right? I get the theory, and I at some level I enjoy the theory, but I'm much more practical. And so I'm always looking for that. What's the practical use of that? And so, but then there's research going on, right? I mean, there's some really good research going on, and you know, the NCDA has a research journal. We have one that's more career convergence, more practical, but there's lots of different ways for me to learn and to find that kind of wheelhouse that I'm interested in, right? Other thoughts on the benefits? I want to switch gears to maybe some advice, which might actually come out with any other thoughts on sort of what we've been talking about here? Anybody? So let's talk about advice, because I think that's always an interesting piece. And we're going to start with Lakeisha, not Lisa, Lakeisha. What advice do you have for people who are new into the career development profession?
The first really is to become affiliated with a professional association. I really believe firmly people need to understand, and practitioners need a foundation for the work that we're going to do. If the work that we do is going to be respected, if the work that we're going to do is going to serve our clients well, we need to be attached to somebody that provides credibility, that provides research on proven methods. And I really think that you get that through a professional association like NCDA. And it really pains me sometimes when I see new professionals who haven't found their professional home, or they are a member of some organization, but they don't know all the resources that the organization offers. So that would be the second thing. If you become a member of an organization like NCDA, get to know the resources, get to know how you can get involved, get to know what the organization actually offers. And if possible, if your time permits, volunteer. A lot of people don't realize that in order for an industry to be professionalized, it takes those of us who are professionals to get involved and to lift our voice up. And one of the things that NCDA is trying to do is really move into the advocacy space, into the legislative space, so that we can advocate for our clients. But in order to do that, we have to do it as a collective. So I think people should also understand that the professional association is really not just to provide this networking place, but it is also to provide a place that is professionalizing and representing the work that we do. So that when those folks out there who are looking for someone to speak with about their career, they'll be like, oh, those credentials at NCDA, or this person's affiliated, with NCDA. I know that organization is about something, they have standards. I know that you can provide the services that I need. And I just think that that's really important in our industry. And then the second thing I would say is I do think in our industry, training is important. I think it can come in different ways, whether it's coming through graduate education, certification programs, or attending conference. I think you need to be continually educating yourself. Obviously, those are part of NCDA that are your mental health counselors. They have to pursue training to keep their their credentials, but those of us who are not licensed counselors, we still need to make sure that we are sharpening our skill set, that we are up to date on trends, even that we know the research of what's been proven and what hasn't been proven with different populations. So I think make sure that you have training and, if possible, credentials, because that is another thing that helps to professionalize our industry and to support the work that you do.
Great points. Great points. Seth, your thoughts?
Yeah, well said, Lakeisha. Thank you for that. Yeah, it was good for me to hear for sure, and I appreciate that. There was there was this gentleman one time. I remember hearing him talk, and he said, "Get informed before you're reformed." And I was like, "Wow, that's really that's really kind of interesting." And so, you know, for me, one of the things that I found is that if I just sit and wait for inspiration to kind of get involved, then I might wait a while. And so I've really found a lot of inspiration by being involved. Like that's like, because once I get myself exposed to the voices and people who are talking about these things, then I can find my place in these conversations and ways in which I can benefit an association. So I was asked to be a part of various things, a research committee, and it was a committee that had a lot of work that was involved, and rolled up my sleeves and did the work because I felt like it was a good idea. And then I found things I was interested in and started plugging in different ways. And so I think for me, to build off, of course, of what Lakeisha was sharing, is that there is this element of how do we put forward our thought of, like, we know what we're talking about, like how do we maintain that credibility with the people that we serve and within our profession. And so there's that. And so professional associations, I think, really help with that, because there's ongoing benchmarking, there's research, there's other things that kind of put forward the standards of practice. But there's also just this opportunity to contribute in some way. And so I'd encourage people to do that and not necessarily wait to feel as if, like, oh, the light has shone for me about this is how I should do it. Like, how can you find your way is to kind of get on the road and start off in one area, and maybe it'll take you to another area, but just to kind of get involved and then see where inspiration may lead you as you're doing that.
I love that inspiration. That's so true. I never heard it put like that, but I totally agree. I mean, you can be inspired by accidentally discovering something. I can still remember the first time I heard Crumbles speak. It was like, I was like, my head exploded. Like you had just said earlier, I was like, everything I'd been taught so far was this sort of linear approach about career development, and here's a guy talking about this happenstance and creating luck and embracing serendipity, right? And it was like, oh my, this is amazing, because it's what I'd been thinking and noticing, but he was able to sort of clarify. So it was incredibly inspirational, you know. So Lisa, I've got so many different things I want to say and follow up on, but I want to hear what Lisa has to say.
Yeah.
Advice.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I'm just, of course, agree completely with Seth and Lakeisha in terms of that. I think sometimes that the idea of getting involved feels overwhelming. Like, I have to run for office. Like, you know, I'm not sure I'm ready to be on the board. I'm not sure my office will let me do that, you know, those kind of things. And so I think sometimes people are surprised with the variety of ways in which you can get involved. As Seth was mentioning, there's so many committees. So whatever your particular niche is, if you work with veterans, if you want to work on DEI initiatives, if you are a writer, like you don't want to go present, but you'd love to put in an article by newbies. That's the other thing. You don't have to feel like you've mastered something or you have a certain level of expertise before you dip in a toe. You know, you can start right from the beginning, but there are opportunities to write, to read. You know, there's a committee. There are all kinds of organizations that want to partner with our website. So there's a committee that reviews all of that stuff. I mean, it is a very wide range of ways that you can just get a foot in the door in terms of what that looks like, and find a niche that for you feels good. And, yes, eventually you will probably get recruited for leadership positions, but that's not a bad thing. But that finding a way, whether it's a personality type or an interest area, like finding a way that is very comfortable for you, but a way to go beyond the just being an audience and start being a participant. Find a way that fits for you and engage that way. And yeah, given the breadth of opportunities, perusing the website, all of our contact information is always on the website, finding someone on the board and asking, what are the committees? How do I get involved with one? It also doesn't ever have to be in person. So if you can't make the conferences, that is fine too. The community continues year round. So that would be my, that sort of, again, as Seth was saying, instead of waiting for inspiration, but go look around, look at the publishing committees that review book proposals and that sort of thing. Like whatever, my guess is whatever would be personally excited for you, you can find a way to do that at NCDA. It's just that big an organization with 5,000 members. There are lots of us doing lots of weird and wonderful things. So finding a way to do that with your community is always going to be a good thing.
And you said you were an introvert.
Oh yeah.
Oh
I'm
man.
the MBTI strong introvert.
I wouldn't have known it, but you know what? I think that's one of the things when I work with clients and talk to people, I can't get involved because, I'm not comfortable meeting all these new people. And I always tell people, you know what, main career development, we need someone to check people into our conference. Just check people in. And I'm like, what a great way to meet every single person in a very introverted way, right? Where you can just go, oh, Lisa Severy, yep, here's your name tag. Nice to meet you. You're done. I mean, there's lots of places, like you said, you think about, there's so many, people like to write, there's a whole world.
Oh,
there's
yeah.
I don't even know how many possibilities there are for writing or being involved with that sort of one of the many places that we write, but there's lots of ways to get involved in it, whether you're an introvert or you're interested in one area or not. There's got to be something, and you stumble on stuff when you get involved, where if you're not involved, you're never going to, the chances of you stumbling on and learning about something new is a lot more hard, a lot more difficult, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Certainly that's crumbles, right? Like put yourself in opportunities where stuff is more likely to happen. I think all of this became even more important when the pandemic hit. And, look at the four of us from all over the country, different time zones, all of that, being able to come together today to talk about this kind of stuff. So the opportunity is there within a particular comfort zone. But yeah, you do actually have to be active to go and look for it. Always used to tell people that at school, like nobody's going to come knock on your dorm room door and say, come on, take a career assessment. You're going to have to, be proactive and go find the help that you're looking for. But it's a similar way. So so whatever your particular interest is, you can find a way to become engaged through that interest. You just have to go look for it.
And I also think, be the change you want to see.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone around and talked to a lot of folks at career centers or workforce development, and everybody has something to say about our industry, or career should be more important here, or my president doesn't understand what we do, or the legislator, they need to pass this. Well, it takes us to make those kind of things happen. So sometimes we have to be willing to serve and not stand on the sideline and watch things happen, but get in the ring and be the change that we want to see, even within our industry. And I also think for some of the younger professionals that aren't getting the mentoring or the leadership development in the roles that they have on their jobs, getting involved in a professional association is a great way to get mentoring. I can say, just sitting right here, with Seth and Lisa, just being around them on the board has taught me so much. I've taken and gleaned different things from them. Lisa played a very big role in sort of as an advisor to me in my presidency. So you might not be getting what you need at work to develop yourself, but a professional association is a great way where you can't just learn about our industry, but literally you can sharpen and develop your skill set if you do want to become a leader in the industry or in your workplace. And that really has been my story. You know, I would have never thought that I would have ended up being the president of NCDA. I wasn't going for that. I was just serving. And in just serving, that's where I landed. In the same way of how I started out with NCDA, it really was just service. It was, I'm so passionate about this work. Where can I help out at? And it turns out there's really a place for all of us that help out with this work that we do. But while helping out, I think Seth's word of inspirational, you can be inspired in so many different ways. And I'll add transformational. For some of us, we don't get this. And we might have a boss who doesn't value professional development, doesn't value what we do, but you can get that in NCDA in that space. So, you know, we should never, you know, forget that this can be inspirational, transformational for us in our own person and careers as well.
Well said.
Yeah, there's so much in there that you know, you talked about the mentoring. You know, there's so many people who are new to the field, and like when I was the director of career and advising at the community college, I was it. I mean, I was the only career person there. So how am I going to stay inspired in my field? How am I going to continue to learn? Well, the way I did it was we basically created main career development, and we started we brought in Crumbolts, we brought in, you know, Janet Lenz, we brought in Nancy Schlossberg. We brought in all these people, and they were truly inspirational. And all of a sudden I realized I'm not alone, right? And so I think this whole idea of mentorship, it doesn't have to be formal mentorship, but it can be an informal mentorship. But that's really where it's going to happen. It's going to grow out of your professional association.
Yeah, it's kind of similarly, Jim. I was, I guess, feeling kind of by myself in a different way. So as a counselor who was trained more with a focus on mental health, my interesting career, I didn't really find other people who shared that. It was like, wow, I thought that career class was actually really cool. And then people were like, oh, we got to take that career class. And I was doing that work. I was like, wow, this is so fascinating. And other people didn't share that. And then I did find people who shared that enthusiasm and shared that within professional associations, specifically NCDA. And so I felt kind of alone in a different kind of way. And found connection and opportunities to foster that interest through my involvement in professional associations. So yes, it's certainly mentorship happened both formally and informally, and also just connecting with people who are like-minded and interested in similar things, where I didn't really feel that before, has been a tremendous benefit.
And clearly not everybody's going to be the NCDA president, right? Or even the president of main career development or wherever. I mean, but there's places for everybody. These associations, by and large, are volunteers, right? You know, I mean, you're certainly your state associations. I mean, there's really no paid people. And at the national level, there's only a handful of people who are paid. Our profession exists because of people like us, people right here who say, sure, I'll help. And I never really thought I would be the trustee of NCDA Board of Directors. I got involved with the Training and Education Council because I'm teaching the FCD class, and I was like, you know, I want to do something more than the state. I'm actually a 2-time past president of main career development, and I was like, it's been great, but 15 years of that, I want to try something new. I want to spread my wings a little bit and challenge myself. And TEC, the Training Education Council, was a great way to like you say, Lisa, to sort of see behind the curtain and kind of go, oh, wow, this is how it's working. But then also just meet people who are doing some really great stuff. And again, that learning and that connection is so powerful. Final thoughts before I close up here. I try to keep these to half an hour. I have no idea how long we've been talking, but Any final thoughts or observations that anybody would like to make?
I think I would like to, I say this everywhere I go. First, I say to career professionals, if no one has told you that the work that you do matters, please hear me today. It matters. My year in my presidency really taught me that it's not even just a Maryland thing or a US thing. It matters around the world. There are people who don't have access to good career opportunities. There are people who don't have access to career coaching. And there are these wonderful people in the US and around the world continuing to try and expand the work that we do so that everyone has access to it. So I just say to anyone who listens in, please know the work that we do, it matters. It matters in our organizations, it matters in our communities, in our country, and frankly, in the entire world. This work is very, very important.
Thank you for sharing that. That's so true. So anyways, I'm Jim Peacock with Peak Careers Consulting. I started my business with the Facilitating Career Development class in 2001. I added online discussion-based seminars in 2010. I love doing face-to-face workshops, and I'm the author of a field guide for career practitioners. And if you are a career practitioner and interested in signing up for my weekly career emails, you can sign up at this link here at Peak Careers. And you'll get the top 10 tips of working with an undecided person. And so if you'd like to connect with me, feel free to do so at on LinkedIn, or I'm also on Facebook. You can just search for Peak Careers. So I just want to say thank you, 3 wonderful people who are devoted to our field and have given so much. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Pleasure. Thanks, Jim.
Yes, thank you, Jim. I appreciate
you.
you doing this. So it's good to see you all. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jim.